Okay, thanks for coming. We're going to do a lot in a short amount of time, which is what we do on Friday mornings. There have been lots of questions about footnotes, citations, bibliography, and the tricks to make sure these do not take over in terms of your time. We want you to spend your time in the studio advancing your design work. We want to support that work with and complement that work with your attempts and efforts to make sense of what you're doing in the design studio by thinking critically about it, using these tools that we're dealing with in this course. So everything we do in this course, the working hypothesis is everything we do in TSeminar seminar helps you get a critical perspective on everything you're doing in studio. You do the work in studio, then you bring it into the tools of TSeminar seminar. You make sense of what you're doing in relationship to what other people have done. And it helps. The idea is that it's supposed to help us see the relationship between what you're doing in studio with the larger world of architecture and the world itself. Does that make sense? So in that context, we want you to have all the tricks that we have to spend more time focusing on what matters most and less time on, wait a minute, is a note citation different than a bibliography? I know one of them uses periods and one of them uses, which one is it? We want you to spend less time fussing over that and more time working in studio. So here's a crash course in the tricks of what we do as professionals to manage these things and establish our credibility in the profession. Using these tools properly is like dressing nicely and showing up on time. It's what we do as professionals to establish and maintain our credibility with our colleagues. We use footnotes and captions, and we do it according to the standards of our discipline in order to have people take us seriously. When we say what we're saying in our thesis work, we need the world to take us seriously, and this is one of the indicators that we are to be taken seriously as professionals. Okay, so just generally about getting into the writing part of the discourse review. You've done your discourse mapping, you've produced an outline, and now what we want you to do to get going with the first chunk of writing. Pick a part of the intention of this assignment for next week, or variations on this. The intention is for you to pick a part, not the whole thing, not the whole discourse review chapter, but pick a section of your discourse review chapter. Maybe it's 3 pages or so, and start to shape it, start to write it. One of the most common errors that students at your point of development make is they have some sources and they want to present it. And what they end up doing, and I know you won't do this, but what students in the past have done, and maybe some of your classmates who aren't here yet might do this, so take care of them. Remind them not to do this. Is first paragraph, here's what I got out of source A. Paragraph is done. Moving on to the next paragraph. Here's what I got out of source B. Right? What's wrong with that? Well, it's less than the sum of its parts. It's a book report on the first source. Pause. Then a book report on the second source. And you're asking the reader to do all the important work of creating and understanding and interpreting the relationship between the points of the first source and the points of the second source. Instead, what we would like you to do, what we all need to do as successful professionals, is we need to put the author, the voice of source A and the voice of source B. We need to host a discussion between A and B. So when Robin Evans says there's a relationship between the experience of the drawing and the potential and possible experience of the architecture, we compare that to what Kenneth Frampton says about how architecture either captures the essence of a place and a culture or misses that opportunity. What do those two authors have to do with each other? If we put them in two paragraphs next to each other, we don't know. We don't know what your intentions are. But when we combine those two points together in a comparative manner, then one can build on the other. That if Kenneth Frampton is saying the true richness in the face of globalization, the richness of architecture in this world lies in the prospect of grounding our architecture in local circumstances, materiality, atmospherics, humidity, everything, then the promise that Robin Evans in relationship to that says, if you can draw it, then you have at least you have a fighting chance of building it, right? So you see the difference there? The two sources are now the ideas of one author and the ideas of the other author are brought together in a very creative manner and a very productive manner. It's totally different than source A in one paragraph isolated from source B in the other. Is that clear? Any questions about that? Now, another mistake that some of your colleagues might make that you should help them with is they sit down and they start writing and they have these ideas. They don't remember that John Ellis in junior year, he mentioned Robin Evans. They don't remember that. So they think this is their idea. So they're writing away and they're saying, you know, I found, first of all, that's a mistake. You're not supposed to be saying I in the discourse review. But you know, I found that, you know, if you can put it in the drawing, then maybe it can make it into the model. And if you can get it into the model, maybe you can get it into the finished building, right? I think that's my idea because I don't remember that John Ellis said it and attributed it to Robin Evans. So I'm writing along. And then I also, at some point in that excellent methods course I had, someone mentioned Kenneth Frampton's ideas of critical regionalism. It's also mentioned in that history theory course in sophomore year. So critical regionalism, that idea is floating around in my head too. So now I find myself writing through these ideas as if they're mine. First of all, that's a lot of work, right? It's so much easier to just say, you know, that point about drawing, translating into architecture, footnote, and that idea of critical regionalism about architecture reflecting the character of a place, footnote, all of a sudden, in one sentence, I'm referring to the ideas of others. I'm not pretending that they're my ideas. Also, I don't have to convince the readers. Robin Evans and Kenneth Frampton have already done that job. So all of a sudden, I'm relieved of the responsibility for convincing the readers of these points. That work has been done. I can just capture the part of the point that is most useful to my work and footnote it and move on and get on with my business. Because some of you are looking at the discourse review chapters, oh my God, it's so long, it's so big. But what you will find as you get more familiar and more practice in this is 3,000 to 4,000 words. What is that, 25 paragraphs? That's nothing. How am I going to do everything I need to do in just 25, 30 paragraphs? Oh my God. I've got to be very tight in my writing. I've got to be very efficient. This is how we are very efficient. We use footnote citations and refer to the ideas of others. And the creative work here is how you curate the ideas of others and get it to work together in your very tight writing in the discourse review chapter. So I just covered a lot. Are there any questions about that? Okay, you can go deeper in your class sessions. So, some of our colleagues think that all I need to do is ask my computer to format my footnote citations, because that's what computers do really well, right? And ChatGPT will do it. Well, only if you ask it to do the right thing. The output of these machines are only as good as the input, that we'll get back to that, and the instructions we give it. You have to understand that when you read an article and at the bottom it says how to cite this source, well, how do they know who you are? They don't know that you're an architect. So they say how to cite this source. Here's how you would cite the source in the social sciences using the American Psychological Association APA standards for citation. Well, that doesn't help you. You're not a social scientist. You're writing in the realm of architecture. If you cite it as a social science source, you're doing it wrong and you're risking your credibility as a participant in the discipline of architecture. We here in architecture, we have a set of conventions. They're not elegant, they're not beautifully designed, but they're ours. They're our conventions. They are established in the Chicago Manual of Style, Notes and Bibliography. That is our set of conventions. You may be a brilliant designer and be able to come up with your own system that is more elegant. Fine. Use that somewhere else, not here, not for this work. This work, we are obligated to enforce the guidelines, conventions, and rules of the discipline of architecture, Chicago Manual of Style. Chicago Manual of Style is different from others because it separates its conventions into two functions. One is a note citation that we use for footnotes, endnotes, and image sources in the captions or in the back matter. There's another format that is the bibliography format. That's for the alphabetized list of sources at the end of a piece of work. 9 times out of 10, when your colleagues are getting the footnote incorrect, it's because your colleagues are using the bibliography format in the footnote. 9 times out of 10, when you go to the library and you pick up a copy of a thesis from previous years, and you're looking at it for what to do not follow their lead and use bibliography format for the note citations. I apologize on behalf of the Institute. There's a lot of thesis work in the library where all the footnotes are in bibliography format. That doesn't mean it's okay for you to do it. Your research methods instructors tell me that they enforce this rule. If you don't get these things right, you get handed the paper back. You redo it before it's accepted. So be aware that the note citation format uses commas between the items. Bibliography format uses periods between the items. If you're doing a footnote or endnote or image source, this is what you do. Friends don't let friends get the formatting wrong, and you are responsible for your friends. Questions about that? So how do we get this right? This is in the thesis specifications. It's guidance on how to get it right. This is our official guide. It is basically what
the discipline does. They're based on what we see in the Journal of Architectural Education, et cetera. So welcome to Zotero. Zotero is one of the many tools that are available for managing your citation, your sources. It is the best one. If you are interested in doing more than just managing your sources, but also capturing the essence of what's in that document. Some of us just use it for managing sources, but some of us make extensive use of the note-taking features of Zotero. So sometimes we grab a source and we put the full text over here in the notes. Sometimes we just paraphrase and capture the essence if we have time. The preferred thing to do is to, as you read it, you write down the things that matter most from it. And so this is just a sample. I'm going to look at a piece of writing I put out a few years ago now that is about the same length as your discourse review. It's very short, some visual evidence, some textual evidence, and basically the topic is how does the material bamboo have embedded in it certain political, economic forces and power, control built into its history that is relevant to how bamboo might be used in the 21st century. So this could be a discourse review chapter. So we're just going to look at it quickly. Zotero has, over here on the left, it has a series of collections. And you'll see my collections have to do with different topics I've been interested in over the years. So you'll see various things. And you can see some of these sources. If we look at these sources, there are three ways to get your sources into Zotero. There's the tedious way where you select what it is. This is a book. This is the title of the book. This is the author of the book. This is the place of publication. This is the publisher. And this is the year of publication. And if we want to look at the citation that generates, we go here to edit. We can copy the citation. And sometimes I put it in here just to take a look. That's not correct. So sometimes I copy the bibliography instead, and I put it in here. And I see that this is pretty good. That looks correct because I know, except it's supposed to be italicized. In Chicago Manual of Style, the title of the book is italicized. And maybe there's no rich text option here, so I can't do that. So the first way to put it in is the tedious way of entering it one thing at a time. The second way is to enter the ISBN number. Does anyone have a book with them? With an ISBN number? Oh, good one. So we click on the magic wand and Ancient Greek Architects at Work has an ISBN number of 08014. Sometimes I turn on my microphone and I just read these numbers into my computer. Did it find it? It's looking for it. And there it is. So magic. And sometimes it has too much information that clutters up the citation, so you have to go in and um, edit it. The addition, we don't care. And so that's good. So this book is now in my bamboo collection, but I don't need this in the bamboo collection. It doesn't really, Greeks didn't build with bamboo, so I can also get rid of it. So that's the second way. The third way, and this is going to be your favorite way, I believe, is I go to the internet and I'm looking for uh, sources, and I find a source. Here's a source I found on bamboo from traditional crafts to contemporary design and architecture. This has some interesting things. I have added a connector to Zotero. This is telling me it's not available for some reason. That's disappointing. So, what is it? Are you sure? Let's see. Let's do it. Let's do this a different way. This didn't happen in my tech rehearsal. Let's try it here. Now, so suffice it to say, it's very small. I don't know if you can see it all the way over there. But you can come up if you want to see it. You've seen it. But it's saying, do you want to connect this to Zotero? Do you want to save this in Zotero? And if so, what collection do you want it to be a part of? Do you want it to be part of the Barcelona collection? No. I want it to be part of the bamboo collection. So I say, bring this source that I found on the internet, bring it into Zotero. And let's see if it did that. Done. Go. Did it do it? And there it is, including the abstract. All the information is all there. And so this source is now brought into Zotero. Yes, Jess. On behalf of the Wentworth Institute of Technology, I apologize. If you are logged in using your Wentworth email account, Wentworth doesn't like these connectors, and Courtney has reasons why extensions are like a channel of malware or something.
Just like browsing.
Okay. And Wentworth doesn't like it when we use extensions. So in order for this to work, I have to go to my civilian Chrome login before I can add the extension. Does that make sense? Thank you for pointing that out, because that would have hung a lot of us up. Okay. So then, so now it's into Zotero. That's great. But now what? Now I'm writing my piece. Some of us use Word. Who uses Word? Some of us use Google Docs. Who uses Google Docs? Yeah, I'll show you a Google Doc example. So here's a Google Doc where I'm writing. I'm using Google Doc to write. So I'm writing my thing and I'm writing along, and I need to say something like many practitioners have recently become interested in bamboo. I don't need, I can just footnote that. And so I go to my Zotero extension on Google Docs. So there's one extension that goes into your Chrome browser. That allows you to quickly move things from anything you're browsing on the internet. You can zap it right into Zotero. The next extension you want to download is for Word or for Google Doc. Those are the only two extensions that are currently supported by Zotero. But when you when you add that extension to Word or to Google Doc, it gives you access to this item in the upper menu that says Zotero. What do you want to do? I want to add or edit a citation. And so I can do that. It says, well, what do you want to add? Well, I want to use this account. And I want to add. So it's saying, okay, so what source do you want to add? And I can say, I know this source. So here's this article by Rabick and Brown of 2014. That's the one from Zotero that I want to bring into my writing. Do you see that? So I say, yep, that's the one. And so the computer goes off to Zotero. It grabs all of the information in Zotero associated with that source. It puts a footnote. It generated footnote number 10. And there it is. And then I have to ask, is this the right format for a note citation? Here's the first author, the second author, comma, the title. It looks like it's a book. So the title of the book is italicized. That checks out, right? Am I getting this right? You're my buddies. And where was that published? Ubud Bali by who? The Environmental Bamboo Foundation in 2014, period. But what page? Right? Friends don't let friends put a note citation to the whole book. I want to refer to a specific section of the book. So now I have to go back and I say, well, I want to add something. So I'm going to try to add it manually, and it's not going to, well, usually it protests. What it wants you to do is edit it with Zotero. So it wants you to go back in here and edit your note. You want to add page? Yeah, I think it was between page 17 and 23. That's where it was. And so that's good. And so I'm good. That works. No, it won't.
Just for this one citation.
Just for this is specific to this one link. Because people have been using this for a long time and they've been making refinements and they did a pretty good job. Do you see that? And so when I want to now create a bibliography, I go to the end of my paper. I've already done it, but let's see what it looks like if I do it again. And so I say, I go to my Zotero thing and I say, add or edit a bibliography. And so it's going in, it's saying, do you really want all these things? And I say, yeah, I do. I want every footnote that I have in this Google Doc. I want a bibliographic listing of those sources. You run off and you go get those sources. You format it appropriately for a bibliography. I'm going to go have a coffee and I'll be back in a few minutes. You make sure you're done by the time I get back. It's been a while since I've done this. I'm not sure why it's not showing up, but when I did it before, this is what it ended up doing. Did it? Oh, maybe it did it. Oh, it updated. I see it updated. It updated the bibliography that was already there. So if you revise your writing and by adding a new citation, it will say, do you want to now update your bibliography with that new source? And I say yes, and it does it. Thank you very much, computer. You helped me spend more time having a coffee and thinking about my design studio work. So I didn't have to bother with all this, right? So there's another way to do it. Some of us get very annoyed at having to jump through all these hoops presented by the tool. So what we do instead is we download this whole thing disconnected from Zotero. Because I'm confident enough in my formatting skills because I'm a professional. I know what I'm doing. I am to be taken seriously. I can't be bothered with all these technical tools and the hoops of them. So I'm just going to download it, severing all links to Zotero. The whole paper. So now I'm going to save a Google Doc version or a Word version of this writing that is now separated, cut off from the demanding tool of Zotero. Because I want to, my publisher wants me to do some separate things. So you can also fly solo without the support of Zotero. And then I bring it into InDesign and I do my page layout. And in this case, I didn't bring it into InDesign and I didn't do the page layout. The publisher did, the University of Utah. And so here it is in its final format with the images, with the captions according to the guidelines of the publisher, the University of Utah. They had their own guidelines, but a typical caption will have the image source in it, formatted according to note citation standards. Okay. This one, I would mark this as incorrect because it's not italicized, and mine Indisch Rice is the Dutch title. It should be italicized. So some publishers get it wrong. This is a Wentworth student learning how to make a bamboo joint. Here's some of the design implications for bamboo design in the 21st century. Here's some Wentworth students building bamboo. Here's the relationship between drawing and construction, which is often very difficult. So instead of drawing a section through these bamboo structures, which make no sense, they simply bring the model up with them onto the roof. They select poles from the pile. They send them up to the roof, and he scales directly off the model as he builds it. No drawings can capture this. So it's not a working drawing, it's a working model. The model gets passed around the structure as they build it so they can get it right. Isn't that interesting? And there's some of the outcomes. And this publisher wanted to use endnotes. So here you see all of those things that started out in the Google Doc or in Zotero, came into the Google Doc, came into InDesign, and now into print. Here's the PDF. The first time you mention something, you get the full footnote citation. But once you've already referred to that, you now abbreviate the second mention of it. And you can't say Lansing page 206 because there's two different publications. You have to say which publication, so you give a shorter version of the title so the reader knows which publication we're talking about. There's the citations, the footnotes. And this publisher did not require a separate, here's another error. That should be a capital R, of course. I apologize. I hope you're not offended. Are you going to get some things wrong? Yes. Some things are going to end up wrong. There's actually $1 million prize for any book that is published where the note citations and bibliography is 100% correct. I don't think anyone has collected that yet. There's always something wrong. So, but friends don't let friends get it profoundly wrong from beginning to end. At least you have a fighting chance now. So, questions about any of this? I think I covered everything I wanted to cover. And I think we're out of time. Yes, we are out of time. So, is everyone good? So just planting the seed for next week. Your instructors believe you would find it useful to go over some of the tools and tricks in InDesign. We know you know how to use InDesign. You've been doing it since first year when setting up your portfolios. You know parent pages and child pages, correct? But you may not be comfortable with text boxes, with text flowing from page to page. You might not be comfortable with footnotes in InDesign. You might not be comfortable with style sheets. Who's comfortable with styles? One, two, three. So you'll help the rest. So it sounds like we will do a quick InDesign boot camp next week.
Yes.
In this same place, same background. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great class today.